guys, welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Katie, and today I'm doing my December reading wrap-up. So I did a weekly vlog for Christmas books, so most of the Christmas books I will be talking about, I've already done a lot of talking on that subject, or I also did a couple for a book review as well, so those will be talked about as well, just a little bit. So I think this is going to be honestly a shorter wrap-up, because if you've seen those vlogs, then I've talked about them quite often, but we're just going to go ahead and have fun rehashing what we read throughout the month. And there's going to be some that you haven't heard about as well. So here's our wrap up. Quick overview on that. So I read 25 books in December. Still have no idea how I did that. I really don't know. They were either shorter or I had a lot of audiobooks. So I did DNF 2 books. Let me go ahead and check those really quick because I forgot to actually put them in my reading journal. One was called The Christmas Dog Sitters by Lucy Mitchell. And this one, there was a relationship that I didn't like right in the beginning. So I immediately quit that one. And then there was another one called We Three Kings by Kristen Bailey. And I read the first few chapters. Really didn't like any of the characters that much. And then they started getting some innuendos and quite a bit. So I was like, it's not for me. So those are my only 2 DNFs. And yes, so thankfully there was no other ones. So I actually put these in order of combining all the Christmas books together, whether they were Christian fiction or mainstream fiction, and then I put the ones that weren't Christmas. So we're going to talk about all the Christmas books first. The first one, as I said, was A Christmas Spark by Cindy Steele. I only gave it 2 stars. I just really wasn't a fan of the romance. I felt like it was just super quick, even for a Christmas romance. I just really wasn't a fan of it all that much. Wasn't a fan of the characters, and yeah, I've read another book by her that I liked, but this one I just couldn't connect. My second 2-star was Spectacular by Stephanie Garber. This is a novella set after the events of the Caraval series, so it's number 3.5, and I only give it 2 stars. I actually started out at 3, but the more I thought about it, I was like, I really didn't enjoy this one. So I think I liked more of the setting, like the wintry magical feel of it, but then as I was reading it, I was like, I was just not enjoying the characters, not enjoying the story. There was a lot of, I would say, oh, what's the word? Is it subterfuge? I think that's what I'm thinking of, where like somebody pretends to be somebody else and stuff. And so I didn't really like that. And even though she didn't figure it out, but I was like, I didn't like that. And I didn't like the heavy makeout scenes. I thought they were a little too heavy, especially considered the other books in the series. So I didn't go farther than makeout, but I didn't really like it. I did not like the characters at all. So yes, that was a big disappointment. Then I have The Christmas Cookie Wars by Eliza Evans. This was a NetGalley arc that I had, and this one's pretty good. I gave it 3 stars. It's about a woman who's got 2 twins, and she ends up kind of crushing on the kid's principal, and she's actually tasked to take over like the cookie baking sales that go on in the school because the one lady quit. Well, the lady who quit doesn't really want anybody taking over that position, so she's kind of like in the background, like planning events that happen at the same time as the bake sales and stuff. So she's kind of like, got this revenge thing going on. But the romance itself, I really wasn't invested in. It was okay. There were a few innuendos here and there, but it wasn't bad, and it didn't stop me from enjoying the book. But I don't know, I just feel like there could have been more to the friendship, I think, between the 2 main characters. Then I have Rewriting Christmas by Anne Stang. This is the first book in like a Christmas cozy mystery series, and I enjoyed it. I liked the part about how this girl, she is having her like old family home redesigned and stuff for a bed and breakfast, and then she finds some kind of mystery that has to do with one of her relatives back in the day, and this man comes to the inn kind of digging up his own research, I guess, for possible research and stuff. So there's a mystery that they're both trying to solve around her family, and I liked that, but I really wish we could have gotten more of the historical timeline. We only see like I think 1 or 2 chapters of the historical timeline. I feel like we needed more context in the past time period. I just wanted a little bit more. That's why I didn't really get a 4-star. So we just kind of went in the area of 3 stars. Then I have A Snow White Christmas by Tony Shiloh. That one was also 3 stars. This one was good. I think I could bump it up to a 4-star, but I think I wanted a little bit more of a twist of Snow White rather than this is definitely like a twin retelling of Snow White, just set around Christmas time with like no magic or anything. But I did really like it. Of course, it's got the evil stepmother who's kind of like after Snow White's money, and she's kind of working with Snow White's supposed boyfriend, and then something happens where, you know, she finds out what's going on and she runs away in the middle of a snowstorm and ends up with this guy and his 7 uncles. And so I love the uncles. I thought they were super sweet. But as I said, it was just almost too close to a Snow White retelling. Like, I love retellings. They're like one of my favorites, but I just want something different. And I felt like this one was just too on the nose for me, if that makes sense. Then the next one is Christmas with the Lords by Hannah Langdon. This was another NetGalley. Oh, no, it wasn't a NetGalley arc. The second one is, but I didn't get a chance to read it. I gave this one 3.5 stars. It was really good. This is the book that had a love scene in it, but there's like there's not even a lead up really. It's like you just wake up the next day and you know that something happened. So I appreciated it that it was definitely closed door and like you can see what happened or whatever. But I did like the family. I thought the family was really, really sweet. So it's about this girl who I think her boyfriend just broke up with her after like 10 years. And so she's like, well, I'm depressed now. So she ends up getting a job as a nanny. So she goes to be the nanny of this couple, and she ends up meeting the brother of the father of the kids. And so it's very, very sweet. I really enjoyed it. I don't know why I gave it such a low rating. I guess I don't know. I feel like so many Christmas books are so similar. I think that's why I only gave it about 3.5 stars. So yeah, it was kind of Hallmarky, but I feel like it was a pretty good Hallmark type. Then I have Christmas at the Little Bookshop by the Sea by Eliza J. Scott, and I gave this one also 3.5 stars. And this one was pretty good, but I think because it was like book 4 in a series, and I didn't know that, requesting it from NetGalley. So thank you, NetGalley, for this book. And so I should have read the other ones, but they weren't Christmas books. So I just decided to go ahead and skip over. And you can definitely tell you need to read these in order, as I could tell by the way they were talking about certain characters that those characters had stories that were in previous books. I was like, oh, that was probably talked about in the previous book. So yes, but overall, I did enjoy the main character. I liked how she was kind of giving her boyfriend a sweet Christmas, and how, because he kind of missed out on that when he was growing up. And so I really loved that part. That part I really loved, as well as the mystery surrounding the bookshop, which I don't think we resolved, in the book. So it could go into another book as well. I can't remember though. But I think it was just a mix of, there was characters I liked, characters I was just kind of meh about. And since I didn't have a connection with the characters in the beginning, I feel like that's why it got a lower rating. Then I buddy read a book with Lexi over at Lexi Between the Lines. I will link her channel down below. But we buddy read a starter to a cozy mystery series, and it's called Apple Cider Slaying by Julie Ann Lindsay. And this is actually the same author, which I had no idea until she told me. This is the same author of the Christmas Tree Farm mystery series, which I love. And this one was just 3.5 stars for me. And I would say, I think kind of how the author is doing it is because she writes so similarly that I think she might take pen names to kind of like, you know, if you don't know who she is, then like you can read other series and they won't feel similar. But if you have read more of her other series from different pen names, then they kind of have that almost same feel to it, as like the Christmas Tree Farm series. She's on a Christmas tree farm and there's murder happening there. This one is on an apple tree farm and there's mystery and murder going on. So there's a very, very strong similarity between like characters and family dynamic and mysteries. So I did like this one. And I think I still probably would have given it the same rating if I didn't know it was the same author. But I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I could. It was a cute mystery, but I just wanted a little bit more. I think I think the romance really wasn't there for me, as there was a lot of angst between the characters, and there didn't really need to be angst because, the main character is kind of being like a Nancy Drew, nosy type of character, and like the sheriff guy was like just trying to do a job, like let him do a job, girl, come on. But that's not gonna happen in a mystery. So it was very kind of Nancy Drew-esque, but I just didn't really enjoy the main character as much as the other series that she's written. Next is A Lovely Life by Jaclyn Frost, and I like this one. I gave this one 4 stars. It was a White Christmas retelling, and I really liked that. I was like, this is so different, and it was a retelling, but it had its own character and its own story. So it wasn't as I said, like a complete twin of the White Christmas movie. It was definitely just more of like, had certain similarities. So in this one, following a man whose castle in Michigan is pretty much gonna be put on auction because he can't afford to keep it up. He's got a restaurant and it's not doing well in the castle. So somebody invites a very famous singer, I guess she's famous, in this book. So she gets invited to the castle to be like, hey, maybe having her sing at the castle will kind of drum up business. So she goes there along with her, I guess, agent slash musician friend that they were part of a group together, as well as a guy in the castle. They were all a group, and then they had some kind of argument and they split up. So she decides to go back and try to help at the castle. So it's all about that. It's got a little bit of kind of more, I would say, like, not necessarily rock and roll feel, but it definitely has more like a 70s feel to it, 70s, 80s feel to it, as I think it's set around that era. But I did really enjoy it. I like the setting, I like the characters, and there was definitely some angst between the 2 male characters. There was kind of a little bit of a love triangle going on, but I really did enjoy this one. I thought it was really, really good. Next is Mistletoe Season, which was a novella collection from Sheila Roberts, Kathleen Fuller, and Pepper Basham. And I actually think Jaclyn Frost sent me that book too earlier, so thank you, Jaclyn. And then Mistletoe Season was sent to me by Pepper Basham. So thank you, Pepper, because one of her novellas was in there, and she sent it to me to read. And I finally got a chance to read the other 2, and I gave it 4 stars. Normally, novella collections don't get 4 stars from me. They only get 3 stars because usually I enjoy half of them versus the other half I didn't really like. But I actually enjoyed all of them. And so I ended up giving it 4 stars. I think 2 were 5 stars, 1 was 4 stars. So I just kind of like, well, okay, I'll just keep it in the 4-star range. But I really enjoyed them. I don't really have much to say about them. Just that they were very, very sweet romances. I think my favorites were Pepper Basham's and Sheila Roberts. I think those 2 really stood out to me as far as the ones that I enjoyed the most. But I enjoyed all 3 of them. And I will, I don't know if I will reread it or not, but it's definitely a very sweet Christmassy romance collection. Then I have The Wish Book Christmas by Lynn Austen. This is the novella sequel to If I Were You, and I really enjoyed this one. I said in my little vlog that the 2 kids were kind of annoying me a little bit because like they wanted everything in the Christmas book, and like I just felt like they were very, very greedy, and I'm like, I can understand that all kids want like, all the toys in the book. I just felt like they were extremely greedy. And so I didn't really like the 2 boys in the beginning of the book. I did like the romances though, with the 2 women finding their, love interests as well. But I really just didn't enjoy the boys. And they did learn a little bit of a lesson going on into the story, so I did appreciate that. Newport Christmas, and I can never pronounce her last name, so I do apologize. It is Jess Heileman, and this one was really cute. I gave this one 4 stars. And this one is about a girl who is a vlogger, baker vlogger, something like that. But I really, really like this one. I thought it was super cute. Her channel isn't doing very well, and somehow she becomes friends with another influencer that's like really, really big. And the influencer asks her, hey, can you make some gingerbread houses for my wedding? So she goes up to the place to make the gingerbread houses. And so she has to stay in this kind of their family house, I guess, and the brother of the bride is there as well, and they live, she lives upstairs, he lives downstairs, and so they end up becoming friends. And I really liked both characters and just how they became friends, and it was so sweet. The romance was sweet, and yeah, I just enjoyed this one. And it is part of a series, but they're all, I don't know if they're interconnected standalones or just standalones, because they're all done by different authors. So I did read this one out of order. I thought it was book one, but I guess I was mistaken with that. So we'll just go with it. All right, then the next one is I'll Be Home for Mischief by Jaclyn Frost. And this is part of that Christmas Tree Farm series I was talking to you about. I got this one from NetGalley, and I really like this one. I give it 4 stars. It was not my favorite in the series because, I don't know, I couldn't get into it as much as the previous books in the series, but I love the whole Christmas tree farm. I love the reindeer games that they have during the Christmas time. I love, that there happens to be a murder every single Christmas at this farm. Can you pick a different crime or something different, where you don't have to do a murder every single Christmas. Why not have something different? But I did enjoy it, and I did like the added addition of some crime bloggers coming to the town saying, hey, we're kind of wondering why there's always murder in this town. And so I did like that part. But as I said, it just wasn't as good as the first 4, but I still really enjoyed it. Next, I actually reread a book because 2 challenges, my friend Jane Reads and Oshina at Oshina's Gotta Read 'Em All, had 2 reading challenges this past year. And I completed all of them except for do a reread. So I'm like, I was not in the mood to reread this year, apparently. But I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna reread a Christmas book because they're short. I think this one was like, 3 hours on audio when I read, at twice the speed. So I read The Christmas Swap by Melody Carlson, which is, again, a reread for me. Probably the only reread I had this entire year. Oh no, I have another one coming up. Talking about that later. But I did read this one, and I gave it 4 stars. I really love this one. It's super cute. It's got that Hallmark feel, but in a good way. There's this mysterious man who's a musician-songwriter, and his parents, without him knowing, switched houses for Christmas with this other family. So he's like, great, now I gotta go to California. I don't really want to go to California or wherever it is, someplace warm. He wants to stay in the snow and stuff and be in his house. But his house has been traded away. So he decides to okay, I gotta go where my family is. So the other family comes, and he's like, I completely forgot my music. I can't leave it out there for somebody to find. That music hasn't been released yet. So he has to go back. And they mistake him for kind of the caretaker of the house rather than owning it. So it's just very, very sweet. There is mistaken identity. I don't know why. I kind of like that. If it's done well. But I just thought it was so sweet. And, one of the girls from that family, of course there's gonna be a romance involved. It was just super sweet. There was winter activities and winter sports and stuff, and it was just super sweet. And I probably would reread it again too, because yeah, I did enjoy that one a lot. Then I have Sugar Cookie Christmas by Monique Brasher, and I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars, and this one was just super cute. This one is, again, another baker. A lot of bakers this year, but this one actually owns a bakery at a Christmas tree farm, and technically her mother did. And so she's actually been in New York City really, really becoming pretty popular with her baking. But then her sister calls and says, the farm is in really bad shape. We need you to come home and help out. So she's like, she dropped everything, and she's like, I gotta help my family. So she goes back, and she ends up running into her ex-husband. And so it's a little bit of a second chance romance. I really like that. The only thing that kind of stopped it from getting 5 stars was the older people in the town knew what was going on but didn't tell anybody. So I was like, guys, are you kidding me? You're old enough to know right from wrong. You should tell them what's going on. So that's the only part I really didn't like, was them. And I was like, come on. Although it wouldn't have been a book if they did tell. So yes. But other than that, I really enjoyed it. And this series is actually, there's different authors writing this series too. So I don't know exactly how that's going to work out. But I'm interested to continue this series, as I loved the setting. I loved the romance between the 2 characters was so sweet. And, the second chance romance. So I really enjoyed that. Next is Tarnished Silver by Shatona Havoc, and I finally read my first Shatona book. I'm so excited because I do love her so much. She's so sweet, and I finally read it. I gave it 5 stars, and it was great. I thoroughly enjoyed it. This is another second chance romance between a man and an ex-wife. So, well, ex-wife and ex-husband. So it's about this woman who runs another bakery. There's a pattern, can you tell? But this woman runs a bakery, and she's single, and this woman who is they're kind of down on their luck, her and her husband just lost his job, and so she goes to work for the baker as her housekeeper because her house is a mess and she doesn't have the time to clean because she is a baker. And so she decides to clean. Well, one day she ends up finding papers, tax papers with her husband's name still on it, and she's like, this woman's married? Like, wait, put back the train. What's going on? Like, I've known this woman for years and she's married. So you kind of have a dual timeline of seeing what happens now and what's going on, and then you jump back to kind of her past with her ex-husband and seeing them together and stuff. And I just thought it was really sweet. There's some emotional parts going on, but I really, really enjoyed this book. And definitely her characters can pull at your heartstrings, and I really enjoyed it. So I will definitely be picking up more books by Shatona Havoc. Christmas at Sugarplum Manor by Rosanna M. White. This was just so sweet. I have a whole review video on that as well. I'll link all my reviews down below if you want to check them out. Usually I leave a playlist down there. But this one was just so sweet. It had that Christmas magical feel to it. It had, the quintessential sweet romance. It had children putting on a play, and it was just so sweet around this manor house. There was a little bit of a like love triangle where like there was like this wealthy guy who, like, I don't know if he wanted to be more wealthy or had the prestige, so like he asked her to marry him, and she's like, are you serious? Like, I don't know about that. And then she's got another guy who was like her childhood best friend. And so we're kind of seeing their relationship, and I just found it so sweet and so endearing. And I'm so happy, honestly, that I got that one by accident from Baker Publishing because it was worth the read. And then my last Christmas book, which was probably my favorite, and that was The Christmas Camel by Vereda Sani. And I just love this one. It was so sweet and so funny, and I just loved it. And yes, there is a Christmas camel in the book. I love the camel. So it's about a man who is a veterinarian, but his family's in politics, but he wants nothing to do with that. So he decides to move to a small town, use his mother's maiden name, so that way they don't know that he's part of the family. And so he decides to move there, and then he runs into this girl who has to come home to bail out her grandmother and her friends out of jail. And it was just so funny. I love the older antagonists. I feel like they were antagonists. They were just so sweet. And yes, they were troublemakers, but aren't they all? At some point. But I thought they were so cute and was so funny. And the farmhouse animals, all the farmhouse animals, if you've read it, the goat, the camel, the rooster, they were all hilarious and added so much fun to the story. So I loved it. Okay, now we can go into the rest of the books that I read. The Queen's Cook by Tessa Afshar. This is the first book in the Queen Esther's Court series. And I gave this one 3 stars. I think it's because it took so long to get into it in the first half of the book. I found it very slow paced in the beginning, but after the first half, I did end up really enjoying it. It picked up the pace. There was a little bit of court intrigue and, backstabbing and a little bit more drama going on in the royalty part of the politics. And I really enjoyed the last half of the book. So this is about a woman who is in a abusive relationship with her father, and she ends up befriending a Jewish doctor, and something happens where she ends up being taken to the Queen Esther's kitchen to become a cook, and she is the only girl in the kitchen. So there's also that kind of dynamic where, like, where does she fit in because she's the only woman in the kitchen? The men don't really give her, enough, she doesn't feel like she has any authority in the kitchen. And so I really enjoyed the last half of the book. As I said, the political intrigue, it was really good. And I'm intrigued to see what happens in the following books. So I don't know exactly like what's going to happen in the next books, but I like that this was more of like not a retelling of Esther, but it was kind of like a continuation. But we do see kind of flashbacks of Esther's life, of course, in the Bible, but it's kind of more of like a sequel to like how she was living as queen at the time. The Color of Home by Kit Tosella. I gave this one 4 stars. This is about a girl named Audrey, and she is an interior designer, and she ends up going home to visit her Aunt Daisy and her uncle who has Alzheimer's. And so she ends up going home, and she kind of has really mixed feelings about the town because her father used to summer there at the aunt and uncle's farm or place. And then so she's kind of getting like memories about her father, and it's kind of making her depressed. And but she kind of also like is seeing like, okay, he was actually a pretty big part of this town. People remember him. And so she's kind of has that going on. And of course there's a little handsome local person, but there's also kind of like an enemies to more type of thing going on in this story. So I did really enjoy that part as well. Then I have Tea with Elephants. This was 4 stars. I thought it was going to be 5 stars, but it wasn't quite at that point. But I did really enjoy this one. This is about 2 friends who they wanted to travel the world together. Then something happened where one got married, and then they're like, well, I guess we can't travel around the world together. But years later, that same friend who got married calls the other one and says, listen, something happened where I now have a trip for 2 to Africa. Do you want to go with me? And things get into place where they're actually able to go, and they have an incredible adventure, a 5-star experience of Africa. As I said in my review, this would be the trip that I would want to go on if I went to Africa. I would need to stay at these types of places. But I just really enjoyed the setting, the animals, as I said, the 5-star resort type feel to it, but also meeting friends along the way, and the people they got to meet in Africa was just so much fun, and the stories that they got to bring home, and the friendship that they kind of grew back from being apart for so long. And yeah, I did really enjoy this one. Next, I finally finished this book, which technically was already on Goodreads like 2 months ago. I put it down and I forgot to pick it back up, but I'm so happy that I did. This was actually sent to me by Wombat Riza. It's an Australian book company, and they sent this to me. And I read the first book in this trilogy now, so I can finally count the first book done. I put my bookmark in book 2. But this is a bind-up of a trilogy called Vendon. The first book is The Heir, and I gave this one, I would say 4.5 stars. I really, really, really liked this first book, and it was such a quintessential sci-fi book. I was like, this is what I need right now because I love sci-fi. So I felt like there was hints of the sci-fi like through the first half of the book, and the second half is definitely, oh yes, we're in the middle of sci-fi here. So it was a good mix of both. So in this one, we're following a girl named Sarah, and Sarah is being bullied a lot in school, and so she's kind of suffering from that. Her father has recently passed away, and her friends all of a sudden are acting kind of strange. Her one friend gets in trouble at school, so she's kind of put on suspension, so she can't see her friend at the time. This one guy friend, she kind of really likes him, and so he was actually dating her friend, even though they, like, you can tell there was really nothing going on between them, really. So, but then some mysterious things happen where, like, her father is, like, trying to discover something or, like, create some kind of technology, and, like, some big company wanted his technology, and then they're like, well, what's going on here? You know, what's happening? So there's all that. Then her father is unfortunately killed, and so she has to live with the guy friend and his family. And then mysterious things start to happen that aren't really explained by earthly things. So I really loved the sci-fi feel of it. It was definitely very different, but it was just, as I said, it's very sci-fi. I did feel, though, I think this is why I didn't give it quite 5 stars, is after the first half of the book, I felt like it was almost like it was 2 different stories, if that makes sense. Like, I felt honestly like it was gonna be more, I thought there was gonna be more intrigue on the earthly aspect of it versus the sci-fi. You know, I thought there was gonna be more mystery involved around her dad and stuff. I thought there was gonna be a lot more of that. And I also don't think there's going to be in the next books. There might be, you never know. But as I said, I think that's why I didn't give it quite 5 stars, is the first half and the second half kind of felt like 2 separate stories. So I didn't really see a good connection. But overall, I did enjoy it, and I really liked the writing in it. So thank you to the company for sending it to me, because I did enjoy it. All right, then the next one is The Mercy Tree by Charlene McLaren. I have had this book for 2 years. I apologize to the author because she sent it to me, and I was like, just for some reason, the past year, I have not been wanting to read a lot of physical books. I read some, but overall, I think it's because my brain has just been all over the place that I haven't really been able to calm my brain enough to concentrate. So I've been reading mostly ebooks and audiobooks. So, but I've read a good chunk of physical books. So it took me a while. But once I got into this book, it was 5 stars. It was so good. If you really want a more gritty Christian fiction book, then I feel like you would really enjoy this book. The characters were just phenomenal, and it had a story of hope, of redemption, and also the fact that anyone can make a mistake, no matter if you are, if you're me or a pastor or anything. So this is about a man who is, and I left my copy downstairs, but this is about a man who, in the past, during World War II, I believe, he made the mistake of having a one-night affair with a Japanese woman. And so it's before his faith was, with the Lord. He was struggling. He had addiction to drinking. And so he goes home, and he is extremely remorseful about it. So he asks the Lord to forgive him. He completely changes his life around. And years later, he is a pastor of this church for, I think he's been a pastor for like 6 to 8 years, I think. And something happens, though, in present time, where a woman, all of a sudden, it's not the woman that he had the affair with, but a woman just all of a sudden pops out of thin air, writes him a letter and says, "You have a son." And he's like, "Excuse me?" And so he actually has a son with that woman he had the one night with. And so he has to try to figure out, he has to tell his congregation at church, his wife, and his kids. And you kind of see the backlash of, and all the things, kind of tumbling down, but also the building of relationships and the tearing down of relationships and rebuilding relationships. And I just really, really, I loved it. I thought it was done really, really well. And I felt like the author really took each character and made them realistically responsive to what happened. And I just love the redemption story part of it, and how each character took it differently. But just seeing the grace of so many characters as well as some like absolutely, hating him pretty much. But just seeing that, and I loved it so much. I think it's such a great story. You got to read it. Then the last 2 books, I'm going to do the reread first, which was The Princess Bride. I don't feel like getting my copies because they're way up there on the top shelf. But I reread The Princess Bride by William Goldman for like the, 11th, 12th time, I don't know, in my lifetime. But I got to buddy read this with my friend Holly over at Lovely Day with Holly. She actually binge read it and read it in like 2 days. It took me all month to complete it, only because it was a reread. So I was like, I didn't feel, like hurrying or rushing through it or whatever. I was like, I rushed through it last night and this morning. So, but I finished it. And as always, I did enjoy it. I always give it 5 stars. It's a comfort read for me. And I did listen to the audiobook of it. There was like one on YouTube that a teacher was doing a read along, and he was good at it. I did really enjoy it, but I think I honestly prefer reading it physically, just because I have those memories of the movie as well growing up. So, but I love it. And if you don't know what it is, it's just a fun adventure story about a farm boy and like most beautiful woman in the world. That's what she's called. But it was just so sweet, and there's fighting and humor and sword fencing, and it's a good time. And if you've watched the movie or read the book, they are very similar, but there is stuff added into the book because obviously it's only like a 2.5-hour movie, so you can't fit everything. But I just love that story so much. So it was nice to reread it again, and I will have a readathon of it happening, I think probably next July, because July is my birthday month, and it's also a bit calmer of a month, I feel like, even though I do feel like a lot more people get busy, but I usually don't in summer. Some things happen, but I don't usually do that much in summer. So that will happen, to kind of do like a read along together. It will be lots of fun. So I did get a chance to finish that up. Then the last one that I read, which is probably my favorite of the month, and that is Crossfire by C.C. Warrens. I am telling you, this girl can write. I cannot believe how incredible her stories are. This was 5 stars for me, not quite 6 stars. I think it's because I kept pausing and going back to it because I had other books to read. If I read it all in like 1 or 2 days, I probably would have given it 6 stars. But it was so good. It was action filled with humor, and I loved it. It is a very hard series to read because the main character is dealing with very, very big abuse from her foster brother growing up. And we don't exactly know what happened, but you kind of get the hint of what really happened. And so it's very, very heartbreaking, and she is kind of dealing with that. And so like she struggles to have relationships with anybody, really, because she's always on the run. And so the last 2 books, though, she's been staying in the same place and has friends now. And so we kind of just hoping she kind of just stays there because she really needs those friends in her life. And the side characters are amazing, and it's one of the best books I've ever read, and one of my favorite series. You can see the first book right there, Crisscross. But Crossfire, it was really good. I think I still like the first book better. But I was talking to C.C. Warrens last night and over on Facebook, and I was talking about like I can't wait to get to the 3rd book because the 2nd book was on a cliffhanger. And then she said the 3rd book's really intense. I'm like, compared to books 1 and 2? I was like, okay, I'm really excited, because if she says it's intense, the other 2 were intense to me. So I'm like, okay, this is probably going to be my favorite in the series. So, and she said it's going to be pretty heavy. And I was like, okay, I'm ready for it, because I can't wait to read it. Her entire series has been phenomenal so far. I've only read book 1 and 2, and supposedly she's got like 10 books planned total in the series, maybe even more. I'm just like, keep writing, girl. I'll read whatever you come out with for this series. But I enjoyed it. And yeah, so we ended this video on a high note. I do apologize for the long video, but wrap-ups are always fun. I hope you grabbed a drink, because I forgot to say that at the beginning of the video. Sorry about that. So I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all in the next video.